Right, today I'm going to talk to you all about dopamine. And dopamine is really important to understand because it can lead to a real lack of fulfillment if you don't understand it. It's neither good nor bad, but I think we need to understand how dopamine works and why we have it. Because so many people that I coach are the sort of type A personality high achievers who are always wanting more, and that is what creates their success. But actually, there's a real lack of fulfillment and they don't feel happy. And they're constantly chasing more and more and actually feel less and less fulfilled along the way. So, hopefully, this will explain why you experience that and actually help you to regulate it so you can use dopamine to your advantage and actually so it's not going to be destructive in your life. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter. So that basically means it's a chemical messenger. So it's released in the anticipation of pleasure and actually when we receive a pleasure. Now, a lot of people used to think that dopamine it was dubbed as the pleasure molecule, but actually it's not just when we receive pleasure. It's not just when we get something that dopamine is released. Because how many times have you got something once, you think, oh, that was amazing, maybe go on holiday somewhere, and you think, oh, this is awesome, and you go there again, oh, it's not quite as exciting, and you go there again, and suddenly you feel less and less excited. But you're still going on that, you're still having that experience. But the reason is because of what we call the reward prediction error. Dopamine is released when you get something, it's released when the reward is better than expected. It's as simple as that. So if you think something is going to be really, really, really good and it's not as good as you expected, actually not so much dopamine being released, and that's what we call disappointment. If you don't expect something to be that good, you think, oh, this is going to be all right, and then you go there and you suddenly it's amazing, suddenly lots of dopamine will be released. That's what's happening there. And it's released in the anticipation of the reward. How many times have you felt excited by something where you're planning a holiday, buying a new car, buying a bike, buying a boat, whatever it is, or going and seeing someone and you feel that excitement? The dopamine is released into your system. And then you go and buy this thing, you go and pick it up, and it's even better than you expected. There's gadgets on there that you never thought existed. So then you get another dump of dopamine. But then after driving that car, that bike, or being on the boat for a while, suddenly it becomes normal. And then you don't get that same excitement. And then you go chasing the next thing. So the thing to understand is why we have why we've got dopamine. And basically, in this reward pathway, dopamine was given to us to actually promote survival. It's what made us actually want to go and explore new places. We look over, see somewhere, and go, I wonder what's over there. We get excited in the anticipation of it, and that dopamine gets released in our system, and then it motivates us to move. That's really what dopamine is doing. It drives motivation, it makes us move. There's a book called The Molecule of More, and they explain in there where there's an experiment. Not that I'm promoting any of these experiments on animals, but it happened. It's not very nice, but it shows actually how dopamine works. And they had a rat, and they put it by its food, and they thought if they down-regulated its dopamine receptors, and they thought if that rat that they thought it wouldn't want to eat the food because it didn't have any dopamine receptors. But the rat would still eat the food when it's literally right there. It would press this lever and the food would come out and it would eat it. And they couldn't work it out because they were like, hang on, because this is all to do with pleasure. It shouldn't actually want to have that. But what they did then, they moved the rat one body length away. And then when it had no dopamine, it found the rat would not make any movement to go and get the food. So that's when they realized that actually dopamine was released in the anticipation. So if that rat had anticipated that food, that, and then the dopamine being released, it would have then walked to the food and then got the reward. And if that reward is better than expected, it gets more dopamine. And that is just like for us as survival. We're walking along in our primitive days and we come across a bush with berries on, and suddenly we didn't expect that. So that's that reward prediction error. This thing is unexpected, it's novelty. Dopamine gets released, and then that makes us want to search this out more. And we start remembering everything about this area, the time, location. And so then if we were walking along again, our brain would remember that and it would drive us to go and find it. But the problem is, we were designed for a world of scarcity. So our dopamine system wasn't designed to get more of the same thing. It was designed to make us go out and forage and look for new places. And actually, when food was really scarce and water was scarce, we'd get it, have that reward, and then our brain would go, we want more of that. And it would drive us to go and seek those things out more. But now our reward pathway is being triggered all the time, and it's overloaded, and we're always searching for that dopamine high. But the thing to remember is it's a chemical messenger, neurotransmitter. It drives motivation. It's released in the anticipation of a reward, and it's also released when the reward is better than expected. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. That is the reward prediction error. Easiest way to explain this: if you're really excited about going on holiday, you're really, really excited, and then you get there and you're like, oh, not quite what I thought. Basically, your expectation was higher than the reality. So if reality doesn't measure up to what you thought it was, then actually there's a dopamine deficit. And that is really all we're experiencing with disappointment, is when we expect something and it doesn't meet our expectation. Now, if our expectation is lower, if we go, I don't know, not really look forward to this holiday, or, just not really that excited, and then you go there and it's fantastic. They got amazing buffet, slide, diving, and all this. Suddenly the reality is better than you expected, and your brain releases dopamine because it goes, we need to remember this. This is great. And this is all that's happening. This is happening a lot of the time. And obviously, if you have no expectation and the reality is just, well, there's nothing. But often what's happening with dopamine is we end up chasing it. We end up seeking it out. And dopamine can never be satisfied because it's the thing that drives us to go and get something. And suddenly when we got this thing, dopamine stops being released. So if you think, got a bit of tea in this, so I'll be careful. You imagine this cup. If this cup is over there, I know you can't see it now, but it's still over there. And I go, and it's got tea in it. And I go, oh, I really want a cup of tea. My brain anticipates what that tea's like. And I go, oh, so now dopamine's being released. That makes me move towards it. Now I've got it. And I drink it. It's better than I imagined. It's not PG tips. It's fucking Yorkshire tea. It's lovely. So now I've got more dopamine being released. Okay, so that's it. But once I've got it and I've had it, once I've actually got something, secured it, I don't need to search it out anymore. So dopamine stops being released. And this is the problem. If you're dopaminergic, if you chase that feeling, anything that you end up having, you won't want anymore. You'll always want to seek the next thing. So it's constantly, you're caught in this cycle of wanting more because you're chasing this dopamine high. But the thing to know with dopamine is it downregulates. It actually our receptors, dopamine receptors downregulate because our dopamine was not designed, our circuitry was not designed for wanting the same thing. And so if you get something, and it's a real sort of high, our dopamine receptors downregulate. So then what happens is you need more of the same thing to get that same high. And in our primitive days, our pleasures were natural pleasures that weren't triggering that dopamine system so high. It was sex, food, water, shelter, go foraging, all those things. But now what's happening? We have false pleasures. We have things we can buy. We have social media. We have alcohol. We have sugar. All these things that spike our dopamine. And what happens is our dopamine spikes, and then it downregulates. So we have this drop the other side. And of course, we want to experience that high again. So we go searching it, trying to get more of something. But each time, what we actually do is our dopamine is downregulated. So suddenly, this thing that once created our pleasure no longer creates so much pleasure. So we go and seek more of it, not realizing that as we're seeking more of it, we're actually driving that, that pleasure that we were feeling, we're actually driving it further and further away. So it downregulates, and also it has to be available. So think of it like a reservoir in your brain. A reservoir of water, it's like the dopamine, and it builds up, builds up. And then if you do something really exciting and it gets released, then suddenly that has to build back up. It has to be available there to be released. So I look at this like when I love whitewater kayaking, I get a massive buzz from it, a massive rush. But I know that once I do that, I'm not going to get the pleasure out of things like going for a walk, spending time with the family in the first, in for about a week or so. Now, it doesn't mean that there's anything bad or I'm selfish or that. It just means that actually what I've done is I've had this big dump of dopamine, and actually my brain receptors have downregulated because it's going, it doesn't want to be susceptible to overstimulation. And that just needs to build back up. So when I'm doing these other things, the dopamine is not there to be released. But what we do is we then keep pushing on that pleasure pedal, going, oh, I don't like this discomfort feeling. I want that same high. And we keep going. We keep going. So I used to go kayaking again and again. And actually, I used to be chasing that original high, and I used to be there thinking, well, this doesn't feel quite as good. And I'd be chasing that feeling, want to do more, go more. And obviously, what you can do is that creates more over here. But actually, there could be really important things over here, like my family and that I'm neglecting. So it downregulates. It has to be available once you've had a high, sort of when you've done an activity that releases a lot of high stimulation activities, released a lot of dopamine, that dopamine won't be available. So you will have that low. And we talked about this, the natural versus false pleasure. Natural pleasures, if you're going for a walk, if you're just having a conversation with someone, doing those normal sort of everyday things, if you're getting your dopamine from that, that is like more of a gentle curve. Whereas if you're seeking out these more high octane things and you're buying stuff and purchasing stuff and lots of sugar and alcohol and doing a high sort of activities like I do my kayaking, you are going, as that goes up, you're going to have a drop the other way. And the key is to remember is it's not happiness. This is the main thing that I think helped me, was realizing that this is fine. I still do these activities, but just knowing that when I do something that is going to really trigger that release of dopamine, that there is going to be a low the other side. And actually realizing that this is not happiness. Happiness is a very different feeling. So it doesn't come from getting something. Happiness comes from within. Whereas that dopamine gets from when we're actually getting something, the actual pursuit of something. And I think I first realized this when I was sat on the river on the Upper Dart, and I was just coming over, getting ready to come over this technical drop. And I was so proud that I had built up to this level and done it. And I sat there thinking, this is amazing. But then I thought, but this is not happiness. This is pleasure. This is the pleasure chemical. I've been anticipating this, and now this river was better than I expected. And what I'm experiencing is dopamine, it's pleasure. This is not happiness. like I say, it doesn't mean that we don't go and pursue it. But what I realize is if I get those two mixed up and think this is what I'm feeling as happiness, I'm going to need to come kayaking all the time to feel happy. And that could drive me away from the things that are really important. So it's not happiness. And the way to explain this best is with this balance. Um, they, I forget the name of the author, but it's a woman who wrote Dopamine Nation, a really good book. And she talks about this pleasure pain balance. And when you think with anything in life, your brain wants to keep this balance. It wants to return to this balance. So if you push down on the pleasure, what it does, it puts an equal and opposite on the other side to level it up. But what happens is as you push down on the pleasure, so as you go like that, you go and seek pleasure. If that goes to like there, then what happens is you get this, your brain then wants to push down here and you get the equal and opposite pain. So then it's like this. So if you tip, you have to accept that whatever you tip on the pleasure side, you will experience pain on the other. So if you think if those are mild, everyday things, it's going to be really gentle. But like when I go kayaking and I get a huge pleasure high, because the brain wants to regulate and get there, suddenly it creates the pain and I'm experiencing this. And the problem is, for a lot of us, we don't want to experience the pain. So when we're experiencing the pain, what we do is we try and push back down on the pleasure. So you might get on holiday and think, oh, it's not quite as good as I thought. Shit, we need to go and do something. We need to go and do something. You keep doing more and more activities. And of course, you need more pleasure to even feel normal. So you're pushing down, but then it's going back even more. So in the pursuit of the pleasure, you're actually creating more pain. Now, it actually works the other way as well. And I always think great example of this is like a cold shower. If you push down on the pain, actually, once you feel that pain, the other side is the pleasure. So it's interesting that way as well. But for this purpose, I want you to realize that whatever you experience in the pleasure side, you will experience the equal and opposite, the other side. So if you're experiencing really big highs, you will experience lows. Go on holiday, you come back, you go into work, you will feel that low. But the issue comes when we're trying to move out of that pain, because this will naturally balance itself. And this is really how to regulate it. We want to moderate our high dopamine activities. So if you can't really fight this. If you are doing lots of dopaminergic activity, high dopamine release activities, what you're going to do is you're going to feel lows. And I think I'm not no medical expert, but you see a lot of people and they talk about feeling depressed. And often it's because they've got ADHD. Because what's happened is the dopamine with ADHD is either not being released or it gets cleared really quickly. So these activities, you get the pleasure and then the dopamine gets released. And then they get this low. And then we feel it as almost like a depression. But then what we do is we seek that pleasure more and we keep going, and we're pushing ourselves further into the pain. So we can moderate these high dopamine activities and we can moderate our diet, make sure you're not having too much alcohol, too much sugar and all that. But I'm not saying avoid them, because the other thing is what we can do is, which is down here, is we can accept it. So I go kayaking and I always know when I come back from kayaking, there's going to be a low. And that low is fine. That's part of life. And that, for us dopaminergic people, is the challenge. That's the bit we got to get better at. Not seeking the pleasure, we're pretty bloody good at that. We got to get better at being in the low. And we need to start also seeking reward from the effort. So when you're doing an activity that's a quick hit and you get that dopamine, we're going to want more of that. But when you do activities where you're more invested in it and you're getting the reward from the effort alone. And actually, you get the effort from doing hard work. That is a great way of actually sort of balancing and regulating this because you'll see benefits of that. And seeing also measuring the long term benefits. So I'll see the instant benefit when I go kayaking, but then say if I spend time with my family and I'm at home, my brain may not think that's so exciting, but actually what I'll do, I'll see the long-term benefits because then one night my boy might come up and go, I love you, Dad. And I realize that's from putting all that time in and that time when I was thinking it maybe wasn't so exciting, but now I'm seeing the reward. So what we want to do is measure the reward, the long-term benefits of those other activities, those activities where they're not so exciting in the moment, but actually we get that longer term reward. So, and we want, like I said, accept and feel the pain. This is huge. So when you go, if you go, say you go on holiday and you're sat there and you're thinking this isn't as exciting, we have to learn to be able to sit in that moment and know all this is a dopamine deficiency. This has nothing to do with the holiday. This has nothing to do with the car you bought. You don't need to go and buy another car and get a bigger car, better car. You've just got a dopamine deficit and you need to let that naturally come up and balance. And then what you're going to do, you might have urges to check your phone and do stuff and do more exciting stuff. But know that every time you do that, it's literally like putting the pain on the credit card. It's like when you put money on the credit card. I haven't got the money, but I'm going to buy it anyway. You're going to pay the interest at some point. So the more we can get used to feeling that low, that discomfort, the quicker we will balance out. And also learning to practice gratitude is absolutely key. So if I give you an example, cup, I go, oh, I want this cup, and the cup's over there. And I go, I want that. I anticipate it. I want it so much. I can imagine myself having this cup is everything I need. So then I move, that's the dopamine. I then get the cup. Dopamine has stopped being released because I now got it. But now, instead of looking for the next thing, I look and I think how lucky I am to have this. And a good way to do that is to imagine this thing is taken away. It's called psychological subtraction. When you're sort of thinking, oh no, I don't want a different cup, I want something else. And you go, okay, what about if someone took this away right now? And you go, no, I really want that. And what you end up doing is you have gratitude for it and you start wanting what you already have. And this takes practice, especially if you're naturally a more dopaminergic person, because it's so your natural state is to want more. And you're actually going to have to practice going, actually, what have I got around me that I'm really grateful for? And I can tell you, I really struggled with this for quite a few years. I just didn't get it. And I was like, no, I want more. But what I realized was like the food in the fridge. I feel really lucky that I can come in and just get food from the fridge. What about if someone took that away? My car is not fantastic. I might want a different one, but what about if someone took that away? Oh, I'd want to keep it. And this is an active practice. If your kids are getting on your nerves, you're thinking, I prefer to be out doing something else. Okay, what about if your kids weren't here? What would you do? And suddenly you start appreciating what you have. And it really has to be balanced because if you live a life chasing dopamine, it is something where you'll never reach the end. There is no end to it because dopamine itself can never be satisfied because you get the high, then it downregulates, and then you want more of it. And the more you go after it, the less gets released. And so then you become probably more unfulfilled and you can really feel unsatisfied. But when you realize dopamine isn't bad, you can use it. And actually, you can use this system to get everything you want. So when you want something, you can start imagining it and visualizing it. And then you can feel that excitement. And actually, you can harness it and go, now I'm going to go out and get this thing. And then you get it. You experience that excitement, knowing that's the reward prediction error. And then you practice gratitude. And that is really how you get the balance. Because then we don't demonize the wanting, But what we do is we can go and want stuff whilst we're really grateful for what we've got. So, and that is really the importance of dopamine because it is, unfortunately, our reward pathway, as I mentioned before, was not created for our modern world. There's in the book, I th I think I can never remember if it's a molecule of more or dopamine nation. They say that there's this doctor and he said that we are like cacti in the rainforest, as in like we were designed for a world of scarcity. That's what this reward pathway is for. It is for literally there's no food out there. So I'm hungry, I anticipate food, I'm going to go out and find food. Then I find it and it's brilliant because I didn't think I was going to find any and now it's even better than I expected. That stores that memory and now I want to go out and get more. But it might be weeks before I go out and get any more. But now we go, oh, I really want that chocolate. Massive dump of dopamine because it's better than we expected. And it's so available. We can go and have more and more. And the more we have, the more the dopamine downregulates. The more it downregulates, the more we chase that feeling. So the more stuff we have. And then we feel worse. And this is, you can replace chocolate with anything. But when you go out and get these things and you realize you can monitor, you can regulate what you have and what you're chasing, and all you've got to do is learn to feel this pain. And this is a lot of this work, understanding where that pain comes from, learn to feel it, and then get balance and fulfillment back in your life. So there we go. That's dopamine. Enjoy.